The college football experience, Colorado Buffaloes 2024 season preview episode. The Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times your entry with their brand new Pick 8. Sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer of up to $250 in bonus cash. Yes, they do have college football action. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Rhythm is loaded up with a ton of picks for the British Open. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm.
Hey, what's up, you degenerate gamblers? This is Bill Burr, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride, baby.
Yes, yes, yes. Woo! Welcome to the Colorado Buffaloes. We coming 2024 season preview episode. Excited to talk about the Buffs and year 2 of Coach Prime's era in Boulder. And I really think they're still must watch. And I got a lot to say on this episode. Obviously, you know, I do root for the Buffs. So
look out, just watch him go. Down to Buffalo. Oh no, it's a guy to Buffalo.
But yes, I think it's an exciting time to be a Colorado Buffalo fan, and it's much needed what Coach Prime has done. And we're going to talk all about it. YouTube.com/The College Experience as we break down all 134 college football teams with a solo podcast for each and every team in the land. And yeah, like I said, we've completed the SEC, completed the Mountain West, completed the Big Ten as we roll through the Big 12. And next up is the ACC. If you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, that's fair. My name is Colby Swinging Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I smoke and I drink and I don't have stress and I'm healthy.
I am very excited. It has been a dark, 20 years there. Really has. You know, I feel like ever since Gary Barnett, it had been just really. We had a 10-win season with Mike McIntyre in 2018.
Couple decent seasons mixed in there, but overall, you're right. Overall, pretty bad.
Well, considering we've had all that happen with the program in 20 years, and we're still number 27 all time in wins, to show you how good Colorado was for a long period of time. Still a top 30 team in wins when it comes to college football history, and the number 1 team in the history of the new Big 12. Your team with the most wins historically, the Colorado Buffaloes.
I don't think a lot of people know this. I think people, maybe college football fans, like in their 20s or so, they probably don't realize how good Colorado used to be, whether it's the 80s or the 90s or before that. When we were growing up, Colorado won a national championship. You know, that was 91.
And you could argue that some of those years, like I really believe in 94, they got waxed by Nebraska. That was the national championship. That was like pretty much Colorado had the most players drafted that year. And it was just that 1-2 or 1-3 at the time. I know, Penn State was in the mix too, but I'm saying like those teams, had you had a 14 playoff, that was your 14 playoff.
Getting waxed by Nebraska that year wasn't necessarily a bad thing. That was one of the best college football teams I've ever seen.
Yeah, and that was still like I don't know, 20-7 or something. It wasn't like a 55-7 type game. But
our guy Clark Townsend in the chat's bringing up the old quarterback Deion Hayden. I hadn't heard that name in a while.
Love Darian Hagen. Big fan of him. He's now currently on the staff at San Diego State. Yeah, he was a beast. But look, I just think it's quite hilarious. And I understand Deion brings some of this on himself, right? He's out there making headlines saying, we're coming for a national championship, which I understand. You took over a 1-win team that people are like, what? And I get it. I would say what too in certain regards, but looking back at a season ago, they kind of did exactly what I predicted. I took the over. I was very concerned about their defense and depth. I knew like once mid-season hit, I was like, ugh. Also, I thought the Pac-12 was going to be really good last year, and it was. I thought they'd win between 4 and 5 games. If you go listen to the preview, I said best case scenario 6, but I feel like I was pretty fucking spot on. We cashed our over, but it seems like in a way people, I think, were disappointed in a way. I don't think they should have been disappointed.
Well, there's haters out there. Colorado's got a lot of fans. Obviously, a lot of people support Coach Prime. A lot of people like what he's all about. A lot of people don't. I know you're a fan of Colorado. Me, I'm Switzerland. I'm neutral. I like Prime at Colorado. He's definitely made them relevant. I have no hatred towards him. If anything, I like what he's doing there. I think it's fun for the sport. I mean, everybody now watches Colorado where previously they didn't. But there's a certain section or sector of college football fans that don't like him for various reasons, and one of them is that they might have some racial indications, or they're racist, especially when you have a black head coach who is kind of loud and outspoken. Some people don't like him just because of that. It's unfortunate that in 2024 that still exists, but it does. But he's out here to prove people wrong. And you're right. It was a decent first year. He didn't exceed expectations, but you always say he won 4 more games or 4 times the amount of many games as they did the year before when they went winless. And look how difficult the schedule was last year.
Well, that's what I was about to say. When you look also like at the losses and stuff, I'm going to hit something here real quick before I do this, because I want to dive into this. But I want to tell folks out there that you are listening to the College Football Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and the Sports Gambling Podcast is getting you ready for college football as well with their conference previews, which I'm featured on for every single one of those. Tune in wherever you get your podcast or the SGPN app, which is free to download in the App Store or Google Play Store. And remember, as always, folks, to let it ride. All right, we are back talking Colorado Buffalo football, and I think one of the things lost in all of this is a lot of people think Colorado, like, oh, this team built of transfers. Carl Durrell's final year there, and by the way, like, they had been dealt a tough hand. Mel Tucker took the Michigan State job late as fuck.
Midnight
right?
Mel.
Yeah, late as fuck. So they just had to quickly try to find somebody. That they go to Carl Durrell, and it was out of left field. All of us thought so, and I was a skeptic on the hire when that happened. But I also understand the spot they were in, and then proceeded to be the year prior to Deion when they went 1-11. Coming into that year, I locked up the under on Colorado because I knew that it was going to be a train wreck. I just knew, mainly because of the transfer portal. A lot of people say, well, Deion, you went out and got all these transfers. Well, Colorado learned by experience. Like, they got completely fucked over in the portal 2 years ago. And then Carl Durrell's last year, Christian Gonzalez, who's a first-round draft pick, transfers to Oregon. Mark Perry, their starting safety, transfers to TCU, where he plays for the national championship at TCU. Mekhi Blackman transfers to USC and then ends up on in the NFL draft. Brendan Rice, the son of Jerry Rice, also heads out to USC as well as part of Lincoln Riley's team there. I could go on and on. Like the whole fucking team. Dimitri Stanley, the wide receiver, ends up starting at Iowa State. Jarek Broussard. You can go on and on and on where these guys all went, but they got really bit by the portal. And Deion then comes in and uses the portal excessively, and it's like everyone makes a big deal out of that. I'm like, what do you mean? The year before, we had 30 guys taken off our fucking roster. This is what you got to do in college football in 2024.
He's not the only one. Look at Ole Miss every year.
Yeah.
That's just one example.
Yeah, exactly. So
we need to talk a little bit more about the schedule, though. And you know what? I was wrong. In 2022, I said winless. I forgot about that overtime win versus Cal.
Against Cal.
So not only last year does the Pac-12 and the Big 12 does too, but they have a 9-game schedule, conference schedule. And the Pac-12 was probably the best or the second best conference in all of football last year. But out of conference, they played TCU, Nebraska, and Colorado State.
Won them all.
I mean, yeah, and they had 0 like gimme wins. Maybe the only team in the country with 0 gimme wins on their entire schedule.
Well,
and look at some of the teams that they lost close to, like Utah or Arizona or USC. Other than the blowout at Oregon and at Wazoo, they were in every game. So I do think whether or not 4-8, it doesn't sound very good, but I think it was a successful first season, and I think they're primed. Get it? To do bigger things this year.
Yeah, no, I was going to hammer that home too. Is the fact that yes, the Washington State game where Shedeur Sanders got injured, they lost 56-14. The Oregon game was a blowout, as I projected it would be 42-6. They got their ass whooped. Even the USC game was a little bit of patchwork, but they did have an onside kick with a chance to get that back and tie that game up. But they should have beat Stanford. They blew like a 29-0 lead or something. The game that really pissed me off was the UCLA game. They ejected Shedeur Sanders for just an absolute bullshit call, which was a pivotal point in that game because that was, like I said, one score. At the time it was like a 1-score game late in that game. Also only lost to Oregon State by 7. Arizona, Arizona was 10-win team. They lose by 3. Utah. Now we didn't have Shedeur Sanders that game, but also Utah didn't have Cam Rising, but still only lost by 6.
At Utah.
I thought it was a really good season considering. Like it's what I thought. I thought the over would hit, and I thought 4 or 5 wins. Now the Stanford game is the one I would say that like that one hurts because like they should have won that game. Right. But another thing we didn't talk about was the fact that and I'll throw up some graphics for Coach Prime here. Is Travis Hunter got injured for like a month, and I think that he was such a significant part of that team.
Injuries are going to really hurt when you don't have much depth, and that was Colorado last year.
Yeah, but especially Hunter, like that's the one like you need. And Shedeur obviously too, the final 2 weeks of the season, but that I actually thought was possible because I thought the O-line was going to be that bad. They had Sean Lewis as offensive coordinator last season. He was relieved of his duties, I think, in like late October. There's speculation that he was interviewing for the San Diego State job at that point, and maybe that was a reason why. But Pat Shurmur took over then. He's taken over now. He's still the OC now. I'm not in love with that hire, but we'll see. To me, if one of the things I thought Colorado could have done better was, I understand the offensive line was ass, but I would have liked to see them run between the tackles a little bit more. The new DC is Robert Livingston coming in from the NFL. You'd been a long time NFL DC with the Cincinnati Bengals, or coming in. Warren Sapp on the defensive staff as a GA. Let's go. He was 1-8 against the Pac-12 last season, but he was 1-0 against Nebraska and Colorado State, and that's how you impress your fans. All right. That's how you get it done. Any of those stand out to you?
Not really. I mean, I just think just looking at the record 1-8, that looks bad. I just think you look at the scores and if you watch the games, like we said, they were in all of those except for 2. And the one thing that's interesting, and if we're kind of shifting gears a little bit, but again, very heavy on the transfer portal. I'm kind of surprised that they're recruiting as far as recruiting high school kids, 15th in the Big 12 in 2024. So it seems like Coach Prime is completely overlooking, or mostly overlooking.
He doesn't visit recruits.
Yeah, so I don't know. Is that a problem? I still think, even though that, look, we all love the transfer portal and the talent and experience you can get from it, but I still think the bulk of your roster needs to be from high school recruiting, and that'll help with depth. It'll also help with culture and continuity. And that's something that he's not going to have this year because a bunch of people are transferring out, a bunch more coming in.
Yeah, very true. And it's kind of like the NFL there, but yeah, I mean, I thought he would have a little bit more of a splash, but I also know that he was outspoken that he's going to build this team with transfers, not 18-year-olds. Maybe that's the plan once they start winning to chase that. I don't know. But at the same time, like to me, he's bringing in a 5-star left tackle and Jordan Seaton, you know what I mean? So it's like, you're getting some, but it's just not, I don't even think they're making the effort to get a ton, you know what I mean? But
right.
Yeah, it needs to be said. Folks, I want to tell you that the college football experience, Colorado Buffalo season previews, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Yes, Underdog Fantasy just launched their college football best ball product. First place wins $20,000 plus the higher lower pick 'em. Pick 8 allows you an opportunity to win 325 times your entry. You can now use specials and boost on all flexed entries. Don't miss your chance to try it out before it's gone. Yes, they do have college football and college basketball. So sign up with the promo code TCE SGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCE SGPN. We're also brought to you by Circa Survivor and Circa Millions. Yes, Circa. I was just at the Circa for media days in Vegas. Circa Sports is back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. And of course, Circa contests have no rake. Circa Millions pick 5 NFL teams ATS each week and compete for the $6 million prize or survive the NFL gauntlet to claim the $10 million prize. Sign up in person at Circa Sports between now and September 7th and use your proxy to play from anywhere. We even have a deal with footballcontestproxy.com to save you $50 with the promo code SGP. If you don't have a trip booked yet for Las Vegas before football season, may I recommend the Ultimate Contest Weekend? It's a great time to go out. If you are going to go, you can hang out with my pals Stacking the Money Green and Ryan Real Money Kramer from the Sports Gambling Podcast and enjoy some of the open bar events at the greatest sports book in the world between August 22nd and August 24th. All right, back talking Buff football. We do this segment for every P4. Worst loss. You know, there's 2 FCS. Like it was some dark years. To John Embry, like there's one though that I would answer this. I would actually not say the Montana State or Sac State FCS losses.
Go Hornets.
It's that Fresno game, dude. That's when I was like, are we really giving up 70 points just about to Fresno State?
Yeah, sometimes it's not who you lose to, but how you lose.
Yeah.
And for Colorado to lose to Fresno 69-14, that's your low point.
That was one where I can remember exactly where I was. And I was just like, yeah, gonna need some bourbon. Anyway, something we do each and every with each and every team. And yeah. Hey, how about this too? You play at these fucking schools that are good. All right. You play at Toledo, which has a great program, at Fresno, and Hawaii's had some really good years too. And at Air Force. Hey, Rick George, look, I like it. I think it's good for college football. But if everyone else is not doing it, then it's stupid. All right.
The SEC or the Big Ten rarely does that. And it is, you know, the Pac-12, they did it when they were in existence. The Big 12 still does it, and the ACC still does it. And yeah, you're not giving your teams the advantage. On one hand, I hope that they continue to do that because it makes for fun football when you have P4s at G5.
Yeah, I don't want to say it shouldn't go. It shouldn't go forward because I enjoy it. I think that's what makes the sport great is that, but yeah, definitely if you're trying to rebuild, which Colorado's been in rebuild for fucking 20 years for the most part, don't put a game at Toledo. You're going to lose. You know what I mean? If you're rebuilding, you know, a game at Fresno State, most years it would be a loss if you're in rebuild mode, you know?
Look, and Colorado, at least they're playing at Colorado State this year. We're going to get to the schedule in depth, but again, there's no for sure wins on this year's schedule either, just like last year. So come on, man, you know, be fair to your team, give them 1 or 2 gimmies, you know, let them get off to a nice start. Let them get some confidence. Nope. again, Colorado has a very difficult schedule.
Well, look,
would you argue? I'd say easier than last year though, because the Pac-12 was better than the Big 12 was this year.
Yes, 100%. And I'll say this, man, is that the Buffs have been scheduling super aggressively, I think, since the late 80s. That's all fine and dandy when you are a power.
Yeah.
When you're in rebuild, you can't do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? You really can't do that. Like some of those years, like I said, I just go back year by year. You'll be impressed by it. It's too aggressive in my point.
Only the Buffaloes would schedule an FCS opponent this year, but that FCS opponent is North Dakota State, only the best FCS team in the last 20 years, who is probably just as good as half of the FBS. Come on, man. How about North Alabama or something?
Yeah. I mean, when I saw that game, and that's been on the schedule for a minute. To be fair, like that was not there when Deion was part of the team. But
a lot of programs pay teams not to play them. Colorado had that option too.
Tennessee did that with Army last year. See that?
Yeah, it happens all the time. Every year you hear of a big program, canceling a game and just giving that school, the smaller school, a bunch of money. So they could have got out of it, but power to them for not doing it. And honestly, it's one of the games I'm looking forward to most. They're opening Thursday.
I agree. For week 1, I would say like it's one of the best games. But let's jump into this. Offensively, they were 58th in scoring per game last season, 8th best in the Pac-12, 80th in yards nationally, 9th best in the Pac-12, 16th in passing, 6th best in the Pac-12, 130th in rushing, 12th best in the Pac-12. That was the one, like to me as a Buff fan, I just would have liked to seen a little more commitment. I can't tell you how many times you saw a 3rd and 1 or a 3rd and 3.
Right.
Or a 2nd and 2 where you're just in the gun and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? Like
100%. I mean, your O line is shaky. I get it. So your run game is not going to be great. But also, if the defense doesn't even have to be concerned about the run at all, those pass rushers can just line up and boom, go after Sanders every freaking down. So you have to have a more balanced offense. I hope Coach Prime realizes that for your sake. No wonder there are 4 leading rushers. Basically, anybody that got any carries last year all transferred out.
Yeah, and we'll talk about one because one I think was a big time hit. The offense returns just 4 starters, and I'm being generous with the 4. Omarion Miller got some starts late in the season. He was a freshman. Now he did pop in those games. It's really just 3 starters are back on offense, but Omarion Miller is one that I am very excited about as a sophomore. But I will say it's probably the 3 best players on the offense from a season ago. Maybe you switch out Horham with Xavier Weaver. I don't know, but to have them back, I can tell you this, man. When I evaluate the wideout room, I think it's fucking so good. I think it's really, really fucking good this year.
Well, Xavier Weaver led the team in catches, yards, and yards receiving. So he was probably their best receiver last year. So yeah, he's on the Arizona Cardinals right now, but I don't think he will be missed because to your point, I think Colorado has the best group of receivers in the conference. If not, hell, you could argue in the whole nation.
Yeah, I think they're in that mix with, especially with the healthy Travis Hunter. Their kicker Alejandro Mata is back. I would have liked to seen an upgrade there personally. I know they have Jay Feely's son, Jace Feely, I think as well, or maybe he graduated. I don't remember, but
Mata was what 10 of 12 last year. The only ones he missed were of 40 plus yards. I think he's a solid kicker. Only missed 1 extra point, 26 to 27. I don't think he necessarily hurts you.
Yeah, here's the thing. And by the way, Feely is back, but distance. He's not the type to have a lot of distance on his balls.
He didn't even attempt a field goal over 50 yards.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And dude, you're in thin ass air. I'm from the Colorado had Mason Crosby back in the day. Like that could be such a weapon.
True.
In thin ass air. So I would have liked to seen an upgrade there. It didn't happen. I don't know. We're gonna talk with the portal and get yourself a drink because we're gonna talk the portal in a second. I want to tell you that the Buffs preview for 2024 week coming episode is brought to you by Rhythm. The British Opens this week, and if you're not checking out the AI picks and props from Rhythm, then you're missing out. Not just outright winners; they got picks for top 5, top 10, and top 20. Use their AI caddy to get some great data insights. You can even customize your own golf betting model using Rhythm's tools. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. All right. We are back talking Buff football and the portal. We lost a shit ton of guys, but I'll be honest, I don't think I'm going to miss many of them. The only one that stands out is Dylan Edwards. Dylan Edwards, who left, he almost committed to Kansas State. He was originally committed to Kansas State, flipped to Notre Dame, and then Deion flipped him last second from Notre Dame. And Deion had coached him as a like a 7-year-old or something. But him and Avery Johnson are good friends, the starting quarterback. What you got to do is make shots. He is the quarterback of Kansas State. And I was surprised by this. And when Colorado added Dallan Hayden from Ohio State, Dylan Edwards hit the portal. And I think everybody that covers the Buffs from who I've talked to was surprised by this. This was an actual real big hit because I do think undersized, but perfect for that offense as a guy that could, you saw it in the TCU game. I think he had 4 touchdowns.
Balls. Yeah.
That one actually really hurt. The rest, when I look at this, I know Michael Harrison had some scores last year, but like
I was going to say the tight end was pretty good too, right?
Statistically, but I actually think that's kind of Sean Lewis's offense more than it is. I don't know if he would have even started this year. So statistically, sure. I know Van Wells started. He started back when Carl Durrell was there. Same with Jack Bailey, but like, obviously, I think they were shown the door. You know what I mean? So it's not Hankerson.
Well, the O line wasn't very good last year, so you could argue that they won't be missed.
Hankerson, for a little bit of depth. Alton McCaskill was one that I thought was going to work out. He was like a non-factor last year. We'll see. I know.
Yeah, he's the one that had a good freshman year at Houston, but did have that major injury. So maybe he needed like one more year, and maybe he'll do better at Arizona State this year.
Yeah, and then Christian Faurier's son going to Delaware, but lineage play. Incoming though, I am very excited about some of these guys. One of the things I want to highlight first was last year Colorado did not have Tyler Brown on the offensive line. If you remember, Tyler Brown was a big time recruit at Jackson State, and the NCAA made him sit out a year, which was ridiculous because everyone else. So that was a big hit. I remember talking about it on the show last year, saying, "Man, we needed Tyler Brown on that offensive line." So this year he's ready to go and projected starter. I think that you're not going to see that on here because he's not an addition for this year. He was an addition last year, but he had to sit out. I think that's a huge factor for this season. Quarterback wise, Walter Taylor III comes in from Vandy, same with Destin Wade, adding. I think we got better at the backup quarterback position if Shedeur does get injured.
And again, if he's taking a lot of hits, he might. Yeah.
And Dallan Hayden, I think everyone's really excited about Dallan Hayden. I did
not a whole lot of carries over there at Ohio State, but he was behind some pretty impressive running backs. So kind of a question mark, but the Buckeyes fans are sad he's gone.
I was about to say that was like, I did the Ohio State show. I was a guest on their podcast and they were really I asked them which ones, hurt. And they were like, well, we brought in the, what's his name from Ole Miss?
Judkins.
Yeah. But that's one that we thought was our future back. So
can't blame him for not wanting to be third string behind Henderson and Judkins. So I guess it makes sense. So, good job for Colorado for getting him. And also, like we were saying, they needed to land somebody in the portal with all those guys leaving.
But he's not like Dylan Edwards. I think he's more of like, you're going to just give him between the tackles. Yeah. Isaiah Gustave from Arkansas. He got a little bit of burn last year. I will say the running back position, if you add Dylan Edwards to this, I feel like you're like, okay, I still think it's an area of weakness for this team. I need to see Hayden. We need to see Hayden do it.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
You're right.
In the receiver room, this is where, like I said, I'm very excited when you mix in, Travis Hunter, Omarion Miller, and Jimmy Horn, and then you add Will Shepherd, who I thought was really good at Vanderbilt last year. And then, did you see LeJontay Wester last year at FAU?
He crushed it. Yeah, he had 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, and when you watch FAU, he stood out. So I mean, their receiver group to return those guys that they returned, and then to add Shepherd and Wester, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and Cordell Russell also coming in from TCU, as well as Terrell Timmons from the Pussy Pack of NC State. I love the receiver room. I'm gonna be honest. I think the receiver room is really fucking good, as we hit on earlier. Tight end
again, quarterback and receivers. You guys are loaded. Shedeur Sanders is a baller. He had a great season last year. He's going to be drafted pretty early after this year.
Exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, for sure. And the group of pass catchers is ridiculous. Like we were saying, best in the conference and at least top 5 in the country.
Yeah, tight end Sam Hart also comes in from Ohio State. I'm curious to see how often they use the tight end, but it should be noted. The offensive line, they went out and got a shit ton on the offensive line. Obviously, like I said, Tyler Brown is back after sitting out a year. Jordan Seaton, the freshman, coming in, the 5-star freshman. And then Tyler Johnson comes in from Houston. He started at Houston. Justin Mayers from UTEP. Yakiri Walker from UConn. Mayers projected to start as well. Johnson, I think, might start. I'm not sure. We'll see about Johnson, but Mayers, I do believe, projected to start. Flapjack Owens coming in from Clemson after 1 year. Great name. Offensive tackle Peyton Kirkland coming in from Texas. Khalil Benson from Indiana. He's projected to start. Philip Houston from FIU, and then long snapper Cameron Hawkins from Arizona. I mean, I certainly think the offense improved. Like I said, you lost Dylan Edwards, which I do think they will feel the impact of that. But I think they added the thing that I think being lost is I think the offensive line is much, much better.
Well, that's a big question mark. They brought in a bunch of guys. They brought in quantity. How much quality did they bring in? That remains to be seen. Our guy Phil Steele ranks the Colorado offensive line the worst in the Big 12. How quickly can they gel? How are they going to work together? Who's going to start? A lot of question marks. Offensive line coach Phil Lodeholt, though, is respected in the industry, and they do have 100 career starts amongst all those transfers. So these guys are pretty experienced. I think they will be at least a little bit better than last year, if not, noticeably better.
I think they'll be a lot better. I think that I don't think they'll be the worst in the Big 12.
But that's a question mark, though. We don't know. I mean, all these guys coming in, they have some experience, they have some talent, but I don't know. It remains to see how they're going to come together.
Yeah. Well, the thing I'm really excited about, it's not the offensive line. It's the defensive line. The defensive line, we'll talk about in a second here, because I thought that's really where I feel like they've improved most as a team. The defense was horrible last year, 121st in scoring per game, giving up just about 35 points per game. Ironically, they didn't finish in last in any of the stats in the Pac-12 because you had USC, but 10th in the Pac-12 in scoring per game, 127th in yards, 11th in the Pac-12, 124th in pass defense, 10th in the Pac-12, 107th in rush defense, 11th in the Pac-12. Now this is, to me, Charles Kelly. They got rid of Charles Kelly. They bring in the new DC from the Bengals, Livingston, and Clark's talking about this right now, though. But to me, they returned Shane Cokes on the defensive line, 6 starters back, including majority of the secondary: Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, and Cameron Silver Craig. Levante Bentley and Trevor Woods back at the linebacker spots, and punter Mark Vassett's back. This is where I am very curious, though, because in the portal they lost really, like, the only one you can make a case for is Cormani McClain.
He just got kicked off Florida, though, right?
I know. Like but apparently, like, there's speculation of what's going on at Florida. I don't know if he's officially kicked off yet, but I know that it's been an issue in Gainesville with him. Amarian Cooper and I might have said Amari Cooper as the wide receiver. It's Amari Miller at the wide receiver, but he went back to Florida State after 1 year. I guess that one maybe a little bit of depth. Okay, but Cormani McClain was obviously a big time recruit that just wasn't working out. But he didn't play that much last year. If you look, he didn't play that much. So I don't know if any of these, you could make a case that Cooper played more than McClain, and that might hurt more, but I don't think any of these really hurt. Miles Slusher played some too, but like,
it's almost like the losses on the offensive line. It's like, this defense was not a good defense last year. So I don't think the players who were underperforming will be missed all that much. The question is, the guys that got coming in, are they any better?
This is what I love though. You can tell defensive line was an issue because look at what they did. Hey, yeah. And this is where I get really excited. The both guys from Pitt, I think are good. I watched a lot of Pitt last year. I think both are big time gets for Colorado, and Samuel Ukunlola and Deion Hayes from Pitt. And then BJ Green, as Chat's talking, or as Clark's talking about in the chat, BJ Green was a stud at Arizona State last year. And it's funny, just talking to a couple people around the Buffs program already, they're like, oh yeah, he's like a legit difference maker on this defense. He had 6 sacks, I think, last season at Arizona State. And people are raving about him thus far. Anquid Barnes coming over from Alabama, Torrin Carter from Arkansas, Chidozie Nwanku from Houston, and Ray and Buell from Ohio. This is a guy that was all MAC. That's going to be an interesting one to watch. Quincy Wiggins from LSU, Keaton Wade, who played all right, serviceable at Kentucky. All of them coming in on the defensive line. I think the defensive line is going to be so much better. Like
on paper, it sure looks like it. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that's 9 people they're bringing in, 9 transfers. 4 of them are 4 stars. 5 of them are 3-star transfers. So the D line completely overhauled. On paper, it sounds good. We've seen this in football, and we've also maybe even more so in basketball. Teams that completely hit the portal. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Linebackers, Jalen Wester, who was the brother of LaJohntay Wester, I believe, comes in. And then this is the big one here, Nakai Hill-Green. Now you see Charlotte transfer. Well, he was awesome at Charlotte last year. Previously, he was at Michigan. Biff Poggi brought him with him from Michigan. That was a huge get to me. I'm excited to see what he can do there. I don't know, he was a late transfer ad, so I'm not sure if he's, projected to start on these things, but I'm excited to see him. And I thought that was a really good get. Johnny Chaney Jr. also coming in from Florida A&M. And then in the secondary, DJ McKinney from Oklahoma State, he's penciled in to start. He started there in Stillwater. So taking someone that's on your schedule, cornerback Colton Hood from Auburn, RJ Johnson from Arkansas. Johnson didn't even play, I don't think, at Arkansas. Savion Riley from Miami, and Preston Hodge, who I think is actually going to, he might be playing corner this year for the Buffs, from the Flamin' Libs of Liberty. I mean, they vastly improved their defense, dude. Like, I understand that I'm a Buff fan, but like, if you look at this, if you're telling me you lose Cormani McClain and maybe some depth in the secondary, but you add in those guys, like I said, go back and look at the stats of Hayes and Akunla at Pitt. Go watch the tape. They were factors at Pitt. BJ Green was definitely really good at Arizona State. Buell was all MAC. Now,
if you look at it, man, I mean, some of those transfers, these are top transfers. They're top-notch transfers that were widely sought after by a lot of programs. So Colorado is bringing in some of the best transfers that were out there. So yeah, maybe you're completely overlooking high school recruiting, but as far as the transfer portal additions, it's very impressive.
Now let's go and shout out to Ken in the chat. It says Hood was slotted to start at Auburn before he left. So yeah, I mean, I can't wait, because I think this team is a lot better this year. I think they're a lot better on the line of scrimmage.
Are you concerned at all though about the continuity? New DC, so many new players. Is it going to take some time?
The DC and OC, I will greet you even though Shermer was there last year, I'm not sure about them. Like, I would like different hires if it was me, but it's not. And maybe, I'm going to trust Deion knows football. He's been playing his whole fucking life, but
also very NFL coordinator.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's where I'm weary is like, now I'm not that weary of bringing in the transfers because I believe this can work. Ole Miss is an example. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you could use Miami and say, well, that doesn't work, but I at least expect them to I think it's a winning team this year, right?
Is this many transfers? Do you want to see this every year, or do you want to see more of a blend of high school recruiting and transfers? Or are you happy just portal? Focus all your energy and attention to the portal.
I think if you get the ball rolling, I think the recruiting will follow itself. And I kind of dig the fact that Deion's like, no, I'm not going to visit I'm not going to go to your parents' house. All right. You know what I mean? You want to come play here? You come up here. It's interesting. I'll see if it works, but I think if the winning works, then you'll want to play for, one of the greatest athletes to ever, play the game. You know what I mean? And, but I would like to see a little bit more high school recruiting, but I'm okay with the portal. You know what I mean? I'm okay with that. So
basically, again, not to draw another parallel to basketball because it is completely different, but this is like Musselman.
Yeah.
Every year, it's in every offseason, the fans, get excited to hear all these names, but I don't know. I just think, I think a mixed approach is the best.
2 Elite Eights.
Yeah. Cause sometimes it works.
Yeah.
And then like last year, it doesn't,
So
we'll see.
But I mean, I don't know. There's certain teams you could say, you look at Oregon. Oregon's one that uses the transfer portal pretty heavy a lot of those years too. Anyway, the win total is set at 5.5. It is it's 5.5. The overs -140, the unders +120. So Vegas is leaning towards a 6-6 season, +3,000 to win the Big 12 championship, +1,400 to make the playoff, -600 to not make it. If you're going to bet that, to win the national championship, +25,000. First reaction when you see that number?
I think it's fair. I think they won 4 in year 1 and a lot of close losses with an easier schedule. I think it's definitely attainable. I think, without just at the surface, I would lean over.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the way I feel too. Like I said, the only thing I would say is Livingston as a DC, Shermer as an OC. That's my only concern is I don't know. A lot of times NFL coaches struggle in college football when they come down. You could use plenty of examples of this. Whether it's position, head coaches, you could say, there's a ton. Paul Hackett, Lovie Smith, you could. I'm drawing a blank on some. I mean, Harbaugh worked out coming down, but he was a college coach first,
right? I do think it's maybe easier to be a positional coach or a coordinator than a head coach because a head coach in college versus pro, it's so different, completely different. I think as a coordinator, you probably want a little bit more college experience than the guys that Prime's bringing in here. But I think it's a little bit easier to come down and be a coordinator as opposed to a coach.
Perhaps, but I know it's like one of the things I think Colorado fans are delusional in a certain way because they think because we're getting an NFL coach that we're gonna win because of that. Like I said, like you can use plenty of examples of NFL coaches that have come down as coordinators, as OCs or DCs that have been fucking horrible. You know what I mean? I know I could sit here and do a 30-minute podcast on that.
Well, if anything, like spring football, like sometimes like when we saw the NFL coach come over and coach either USFL or UFL or X League, we're like, I don't know, man. College coaches are more adept at that because they have all kinds of roster transition and they're just more flexible.
The game is simpler too. The game is simpler. Like sometimes I feel like NFL coaches come in and they're so complex. The game is doesn't need to be that simple,
for sure,
or doesn't need to be that complex.
Right.
Let's jump into the schedule here. But my first thing is like the 5.5. I like the over. And look, if you're a Colorado fan, we've talked about this on our show throughout the offseason when we're doing our conference schedule breakdowns. If you think you can win 7-8 games in the Big 12, I think you should place a future for them to win the championship, because there's a decent shot that a 3-loss team is in the Big 12 championship.
There could be a lot of carnage with how equal or even a lot of those teams are, for sure.
Yeah. So let's jump into the schedule. Week 1 Thursday night. Colorado Buffaloes are currently, I think, an 8-point favorite at home against North Dakota State. The Bison have been the best FCS conference, or the best FCS team over the past 20 years. Currently, I would say they're the second best team in the FCS. But they're bringing in a brand new head coach and Tim Palasek, who's coming over from Wyoming, and Craig Bowl. I actually do think for North Dakota State, that's a blessing in disguise, because Matt Entz had kind of had this program going down a tiny bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
And I think Palasek's actually gonna get this program going, but it is his first game, and you should have an advantage there if you're Coach Prime. But obviously, like, this is one they can't take lightly, because if they do, and this is what I love about this, like, a bunch of players from North Dakota State came back where we thought they used that COVID eligibility and came back this year. But Cam Miller, their starting quarterback, is not the most efficient passer. He's kind of like Tebow-esque, right? And you're going to learn about the Buffs trenches, to me, in game 1, because North Dakota State constantly puts offensive linemen in the pros. If Colorado can just hold up against North Dakota State, I honestly think North Dakota State's offensive line over the past few years has been better than some of the Big 12 offensive lines. So you're going to learn from the start if this team can play in the trenches. I think Colorado's going to win this game. I think their athleticism is going to be too much, but fascinated by this matchup. I will say, with the 8 points, it seems to be a trendy pick that North Dakota State is, I'm going to lay the 8. I think Colorado covers late. What are you doing here?
Yeah, I mean, with how good North Dakota State's been lately, they don't play many FBS teams, but I'll tell you, the last 2 times they did play an FBS team, they lost at Arizona 31-28 in 2022, and they lost at Iowa 23-21 a few years before that. So they're right up there with whoever they play. I agree, though. I'm going to go Buffaloes. I do think some of that speed and talent will be too much for the Bison. And I also think I agree. I'm going to lay the points, too. I think in the second half, Colorado opens it up a little bit. Maybe Shedeur Sanders connects with a couple, deep passes, and they end up winning by double digits. But I do think it's going to be a close game. Second half, Colorado pulls away.
Then we got the big one in Lincoln, Nebraska. Colorado's beaten Nebraska 3 straight times. Can they make it 4? I think they do. Dylan Raiola's got to prove it to me. I understand this is a nationally televised game at night, which that is a little scary, because that place will be fucking rocking. But I think, Shedeur and Colorado like the limelight on them. Dylan Raiola, who's supposed to be a fucking stud, this is where, we're going to learn about him. Maybe they can beat him, but I think coming into it, I was surprised to see Nebraska as a favorite. I don't understand why. Considering we haven't seen this quarterback throw a pass in college football, it was surprising to me as I thought Colorado would come in as the favorite, because Colorado beat them down last year, even though it was actually kind of an ugly game.
Yeah, it was 36-14, but one of the big things there was the turnover battle. Nebraska, they had 4 turnovers, I think, to just 1 on Colorado. If it wasn't for those turnovers, I think the game's a lot closer. I'm gonna, I think we did the Nebraska podcast when we were going through the Big Ten. I took the Huskers. I'm gonna go with that. I think this is a fantastic game. Right off the bat, the 2 games are going to be real fun, primetime games. I can't wait to watch Colorado at Nebraska. I'm going to go with the home team, though. I think they pull it out very closely. I don't feel great about it, though.
I'm more concerned with this game, the 3rd game, than the 2nd game. Because, Nebraska's got to prove it to me. They haven't they lose like every close game ever over the past 10 years. So it's like, prove it to me. I know Colorado hasn't been setting the world on fire, but they have won 3 straight against Nebraska. This game is the one that I think is tricky. Going to Fort Collins to play Colorado State. that's one where I'll say like,
well, put it like this. I think,
yeah,
you know, that road trip there, the back-to-back road games, I have Colorado losing one of them. Whether that's Nebraska or Colorado State, I'm not sure. But after that stretch, I'll have Colorado at 2-1.
yeah, I'll meet you there. Like for some reason, the Colorado State game, I got to interview Jay Norvell, and he you know handled it like a pro and said no, but the players, man, each player I talked to was saying like we have that game circled. So, that's the one that I think like okay.
Well, it's tough. Your two biggest rivals, you play in back-to-back weeks, both on the road. If Colorado starts off 3-0, which they're capable of, but if they do, then you're feeling great. Well, I guess you don't want to feel too good
last year.
They did last year.
Yeah.
And then it kind of unraveled. So you probably don't get your hopes up too much. But no, if you start off 3-0, I think you're in great shape to definitely hit the over and maybe get to like 8 or 9 wins. But I have them at 2-1.
And my fear is this: they beat Nebraska, nationally televised game. I think NBC is covering it. And I could just see, them, you win a big time rivalry game on the road. You're nationally televised. You're thinking I'm the fucking best. And then you got to go play little brother on the road. I just think it's a fucking horrible spot too. Like if you had put the Baylor game week 3 and Colorado State week 4, I think it'd be better. I think it's just a really bad spot there. So I will say 2-1 in the non-con as well. Dave Aranda and Baylor come in there on September 21st, come into Folsom Field. I am higher on Baylor, I think, than most people, but I still think Colorado should win this game. If you're going to contend in the Big 12, you got to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, Baylor's certainly a mystery team this year. They were just 3-9 last year. The game is in Boulder. I'll go Buffaloes.
And then Deion's back in Florida as he heads to the bounce house. This one is one that I have the Buffs losing.
First ever matchup, and I'm right there with you.
I'm excited for this, though, man.
This is another fun game.
Yeah.
So I mean, like those people that don't like Coach Prime, I don't get it, because I mean these are he's must watch, and a lot of these games right off the bat. I mean, 4 out of the Baylor game, whatever, but at UCF, Prime back in the state of Florida, I love it. But I am high on UCF this year. I think overall they're probably a better team than Colorado, and they're at home. Chalk this one up as a loss. I got Colorado 3-2.
I'll meet you there. They get a bye week on October 5th, and they're home to Kansas State. This is, to me, this is everything to me. Like, this is a game. I think they could win this game because it's in Boulder. If this was in Little Apple, I would say they're going to lose, but I think they could win this game. Now, obviously you have to favor Kansas State based off recent performances, but I think it's certainly a winnable game, man. I don't like Kansas State plays this game where they just play. They're almost like Iowa to a certain extent, where like when you get them outside of their own home, they could lose to anybody in the Big 12. Now they win majority of them, but they win by like 3. You know what I mean? So it's like that game will be there for the taking.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado's conference schedule in general is interesting because they do play the top of the conference. The 2 favorites are K-State and Utah, and Oklahoma State was in the championship game last year, but they get all 3 of them at home. I think a big question, not to skip ahead, but a big question is how many of those 3 home games against the top of the league can they win? I think they're going to win at least one.
I think so too.
Is it K-State? I'm going to lean K-State here, but I do think Colorado wins. Yeah, I'll say Colorado's going to win 1 or 2 of them.
Give me my Buffs. Give me my Buffs.
I'll take K-State.
Glad this game's back on the schedule, by the way. Growing up a Buff fan, it was Nebraska and Colorado State were the rivals. But if you had to tell me like who's the other Big 12 game you would want, or Big 8 game that you would want, it was K-State to me. It was K-State. They had some really good matchups in the Bill Snyder era. All right,
so halfway through, I'm at 3-3. You're at 4-2. Is that right?
Yep. And guess what? I got them winning in Tucson because I think Arizona's. We'll see about Arizona this year. I got the Buffs going into Tucson and winning.
I do think Colorado wins one of these last 2 games, either K-State or Zona. So since I gave the K-State game as a L, I will agree with you. I think they win on the road here and knock off the Wildcats.
And then Scott Satterfield and the Cincinnati Bearcats are coming to town on October 26th. Dude, I think they could win this game.
I'm gonna chalk that up as a W2. Cincinnati might be the worst team in the conference.
This part of the schedule to me is super, super important to me. Like this, the between the bye weeks, like October 11th to October 26th, they have to play good because, unfortunately, down the stretch, it's really hard. But if you put yourself in Big 12 contention, like right now, I only have them with one loss in the Big 12 heading into November. And they head to Lubbock. They do get a bye week before this, but I have them losing in Lubbock.
Yeah, it's a tough place to play. I think I'm going to agree. Texas Tech at home is always tricky. Expect a lot of points, but I'm going to chalk this up as an L2. So I'm at 5-4 with the last 3.
Yeah, I got this as a loss, which would put it be the third loss of the season to me. So what's that? What's that? 6-3.
Yeah.
Then they're home to Utah, and I have them losing this one. I just feel like Utah. Now here's what I do like. Cam Rising could be injured by now because he's been injured like every year of his career. But I think Utah is a body blow, man. I just feel like, and I feel like Whittingham gets up for this game. So, you talked about the 3 home games: Kansas State, Utah, Oklahoma State. I think Utah is by far the harder of the 3 because it's just a body blow game, dude.
Yeah, I expect Utah, especially a healthy Utah, if that happens, to be a lot better than their record last year. I think that I expect them to win the conference, and that's not going out on a limb. That's why they're the favorites. I have Utah winning this also, which means I'm sitting at 5-5.
Yeah. And then, so I got them at 6-4. They are at Kansas. Here's what I love though. So right now I have them with 3 Big 12 losses. And I think if they win out, they could end up in the Big 12 championship. Now, obviously we don't know the tiebreaker situation, but I fully expect 3 losses for one of the teams in the conference. This game's not on campus. This is at Arrowhead. I think it's winnable, man. I think it's a winnable game because of that.
Well, I have exactly what you said. I think Colorado wins out. I think they win at Arrowhead versus Kansas, and then they win at home against Oklahoma State to close out the year. For me, that is 7-5. That is an over, a nice little bowl game, a pretty nice year too.
Yeah.
So I jumped ahead a little bit. So you have them beating Kansas. What happens against the Cowboys of Oklahoma State?
Yeah, I got them winning that too. But I mean, those are 50-50 games, but I just feel like Kansas not having their home crowd, where I think Colorado will be able to travel a little bit, especially if there's a chance to still make the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
And then the Oklahoma State game. I'm one of these guys, when Oklahoma State's projected to be really good, they normally fall off a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
So I think I think they can beat Gundy there in Boulder.
Yeah. And like I was saying, those 3 tough games at home, I had them losing to K-State and Utah. So Oklahoma State is the one they get.
So 8-4 for me.
That would be doubling the win total from last year. I think that would be very impressive. For me, it's 7-5, which I still chalk up as a good, a good season. But yeah, for those people that think that Coach Prime could just, turn it on and win, 9 or 10 games right off the bat, that's just not how college football works,
Yeah.
So he is building the program. They're getting talent in there. They haven't had a player drafted in a few years. That's all going to change come next April or May when the next NFL draft is.
I would argue that Christian Gonzalez, he spent way more time at Colorado than Oregon. He spent 1 year at Oregon. Same with Mekhi Blackman and some of the other guys. Too. But yeah. Let me ask you this though: ceiling and floor. Like when you look at this now, I'm not going to say they're going to go 12-0, but I will say that every game on the schedule to me is winnable because you get Utah, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State in Folsom. If those were road trips, I would say those games would probably be unwinnable, especially Utah.
Again, that's a very interesting thing about the schedule is that they're all winnable and they're all losable.
That's about to say, like you could go 4-8 again easily.
Yeah. Especially if the line play doesn't improve. Again, on paper, we see all these names coming in, all these, 4-star transfers, 3-star transfers. Sounds great. Doesn't really mean anything until they're producing on the field for Colorado. So that's why there are still question marks, and that's what makes the variance so great. They could go 9-3, they could go 5-7.
But I'll say this: last year you had a defense that was in shambles go up against the likes of Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, DJU, Noah Fafita, and Cam Ward, and also I don't know if it was Dante Moore, whoever they played in the UCLA game. Yeah. But this year you get who? KJ Jefferson.
You get Fafita again.
Yeah, Fafita, but sophomore slump's a real thing.
You get Jalen Daniels, you get Bowman, you get Cam Rising.
Well,
pretty good quarterbacks.
Hang on, this is my point.
Fowler,
Cam Rising. No, he is good. He is good. No, but my point is Jalen Daniels and Cam Rising have to make it to November.
True.
That is like, dude, if you're looking at from the past 2 years, that hasn't happened.
Yeah. Well, I just think if you're a Colorado fan, you look at your team, you still got a really good quarterback. You still got the skill players. You expect at least a little bit better line play and a little bit better defense.
On the defensive line, dude.
Right.
Like you cannot convince me. You can maybe say the offensive line, we have to see it. I know the defensive line personnel is way better.
And then schedule wise, not that Colorado has an easy schedule this year, because they definitely don't. But I think it is a little bit easier than last year. And you have a lot of these, tough games at home. You're bound to get a couple of them at least. So as a Colorado fan, you're happy with 8-4, Colby?
Dude, I'm happy with, to me, like the program was in shambles. Like I was happy with 4-8 last year.
Yeah.
I would have liked the Stanford game to close out 5-7. But that's why I think it's hilarious that people think like, he shit the bed first year. No, he did not. He exceeded expectations.
That's just not a knowledgeable person on college football. You can't, just because you bring in, your son who's a very good quarterback and you get some big names in the portal, that doesn't mean your whole roster is ready to compete in one of the toughest leagues in college football. So that is kind of silly. But I think this year you should expect a better win total than last year. And I think if you're going bowling, I think you're happy.
Yeah, to me, if we go bowling, I'm happy. I would be, if we go 4-8, I would be disappointed this year. But
will this be a lock on the over for you?
Yeah, I will because I just don't see, it's a lot easier of a schedule. You know what I mean? Like just the passing quarterbacks and this slate. Like I said, if we get Cam Rising or Jalen Daniels, it's just not comparable. Caleb Williams and Bo Nix and so some of those other guys, like they're just way better than the quarterback play we're going to get here. Now, maybe Avery Johnson has an unbelievable year or something. I don't know, but I just think we're in a good spot. But I will say, like that middle of the season to me, the Kansas State, Arizona, Cincinnati, I think is vital to win those games. To come out at least 2-1 there. You know what I mean? That is kind of, I think, because you're going to need that. The final 4-game stretch, all those teams will be bowl teams, in my opinion. So you gotta get in position for that. But yeah, I like this. I think, and I'll go back to this. I don't think it's that, like, maybe I'm a homer. I don't know, but I think it's worth the sprinkle on the Big 12 championship, because if you get in that game, who knows the tiebreaker scenario? Who knows who the fuck you're playing? I tend to think it will be Utah, but if Rising gets injured at any point, Utah lost both their backups from a year ago. So I will say, if Rising gets injured, Utah could fall off the face of the fucking, the planet, because of how bad their quarterback play would be with the backup there.
Speaking of, you said bowl teams, looking at this schedule here, and while we're just saying it's definitely easier than last year, I think every FBS team, they play 11 FBS teams. I think at least 9 of them are bowl teams. I'm guessing Cincinnati and Baylor might be the only ones that aren't.
Yeah, and I actually have Baylor as a bowl team. I actually have North Dakota State as an FCS playoff team.
Yep.
And then I have every other team. I actually think, to me, it's Cincinnati or maybe Nebraska, but I think I had Nebraska at 6-6. So
Yeah.
I think Cincinnati would be the only team that I don't have in a bowl.
That's
so
tough.
yeah, that is tough. Anyway, looking forward to the season. I like the over. You will hear it on the Locks pod, but also
I like the over too. I'm not quite as strong as you are, but I can see it in one of my locks as well.
What's the most lethal road trip there? Texas Tech one, right? Or UCF, right?
Yeah, I would say at UCF is the toughest, but at Nebraska is not going to be easy either.
Yeah, I put Nebraska as number one because of the rivalry, but
but at UCF is really tough. Still going to be pretty hot and muggy in Florida in September, but at Texas Tech it's always like nobody wants to go in to Lubbock. That's always a tough place to play. Even if like the Texas Tech teams aren't that good, it's still tough. And actually, I think they have a pretty good team this year.
Yeah, I do too. That's what I'm saying. I think they're flying a little bit under the radar. Got to be fascinating to watch, folks. NC Nick's on the over. I'm on the over. Sprinkle a little bit, just because through a tiebreaker could find yourself in the Big 12 championship, and then who knows what happens from there. Folks, make sure you give NC Nick a follow on Twitter at NC__NICK. I'm on Twitter at TheColbyD. The College Football Experience is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. YouTube.com/the college experience. Please, if you can, hop on over there, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, iTunes. What are you doing? Give us a 5-star review. Get on over there. Check out the Stadium Heads podcast. Folsom Field is one. NC Nick, you've been there. How beautiful is that stadium?
Oh, it's awesome, man.
I think
we had a blast. Been there a couple times, right?
Yeah.
I've been to Boulder a couple times, just Folsom Field once, but good times.
Yeah, that stadium is, I think, one of the low-key better stadiums in college football. Check out the Stadium Heads podcast. We do a deep dive on all the college football stadiums, but specifically, we did talk Folsom Field for a good portion there. As it's, I think, 100 years old.
What's that pizza joint that we walked to after the game? It was a good pizza place, and we were hammered, so I don't definitely. I was
about to say, dude, I left my wallet in the fucking hotel room. You know what I mean? So. Yeah.
On purpose or is that a mistake?
You got good alcohol, Boulder, and maybe good other things too.
Yeah, I think so.
But look, I'm just saying, if you're in Boulder,
I smoke and I drink and I don't have stress and I'm healthy.
I think mushrooms are legal too in Colorado, so you could really just go balls to the wall.
You know what it was? It was the car bombs before the game that really
That's true.
put us in bad shape. So we were going to the game in bad shape already.
Well, I hadn't done a car bomb in about 15 years, I feel like, and 10 years. And of all things, I would have not projected, like, we're basically in like the lobby bar of like a Hilton or something. And a soccer dad, essentially,
volleyball dad.
Dad.
Yeah, his daughter was at Stanford, and Stanford.
That's what I'm saying.
He's decked volleyball or something.
He's decked out in a Stanford sweatshirt, and he just looks at us and goes, "You guys want to?" First off, he like says goodbye to his wife. She leaves. He's like, "You guys want to do some car bombs?" And I'm like, right. Sure, right? I was not expecting a Stanford guy. Now maybe that's just his daughter, and he's wearing the sweatshirt for his daughter, but he could be a Stanford grad.
I don't know.
Anyway, go get yourself some car bombs in Boulder. Can't wait for the Buff season. We coming. This is the College Football Experience. Make sure you check out the FCS College Football Experience, the College Basketball Experience. Tad Boyle had a fun season with the Buffs in the NCAA tournament a season ago. And there's more. Obviously, jumping into the Big 12 play is going to be pretty wild. Yeah, until next time, folks, check out all that good stuff. This is the College Football Experience. We coming Colorado Buffaloes 2024 preview. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.